Hello, my name is Anthony Burokas with AIBA Communications. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about interchangeable lens camcorders like the GH4 from Panasonic and now the LS300 from JVC. Both of these are micro four thirds mount cameras, but the JVC offers a little something extra. I wanted to give you a quick walk around the LS300 so you could be a little bit more familiar with the camera than you can with just a brochure. One of the key differentiating features with the higher two models of this 4K camera are the handle. The base model does not come with the handle. The higher end models do come with the handle. It slides into an open shoe here. You slide it back and then you screw it down into the hole, and it not only makes electrical contact, but it provides a very firm way to grasp and carry the whole camera as you're working with it. It also gives you a place to mount a shotgun microphone, although you don't have to use one because you can use the two built-in microphones that are in the camera itself. The LS300, of course, has this big bulge up front, which is where your neutral density filters are and where the large sensor is. Right behind that is your auto mode, full auto, a preset, or off, in which case you're doing everything manual. There's up to 10 different user assignable buttons, although the functions that you can assign to these buttons is rather limited in my opinion. There's a lot of functions that I might like to assign that aren't available on buttons. Like there's focus assist on number 1, that's really handy. Time code on 2, I really don't feel the need to adjust my time code that much, especially in the nonlinear world. You're just throwing things into a timeline. Down here is your lock, or number 10. Right below that is your iris, auto or manual, and then you can adjust the iris here. I find the iris on this camera is a little laggy, especially when I'm dealing with micro four thirds lenses. I'll turn the dial and then it'll adjust slowly behind that. You can adjust that in the camera, the auto iris adjustment, but when I'm adjusting a manual iris, when I'm adjusting it manually, I expect it to react as fast as I'm moving the dial. Right in front of that is your white balance button. Right behind this button is your gain. There's two little sliding switches, which are actually kind of difficult to get your fingers on to move, so you want to more use your fingernail than you're going to use your finger to flip these up and down, because they're pretty well recessed so that you don't bump them, but I would like a little bit more purchase on these two knobs. Gain and your white balance, which has a preset, an A and a B. I've been through the menus a few times. I don't recall finding the preset. I'm sure it's in there somewhere, but adjusting the preset white balance is a little bit more tricky than just going to A, pointing it at something and hitting the button. So that's what I've been doing. Right behind here, there's two SD card slot indicators to tell you when you're recording and when you're not. You can adjust a marker, which is number 5. I really don't assign markers while I'm going. Your auto exposure level, you can adjust that up or down if you're leaving it in auto exposure. I tend to leave it in manual and use the iris. Your shutter button, you have to hit the shutter button and then you go up and down, and after a certain length of time, it'll actually let go of that so you don't accidentally bump it. Me personally, I wanted to stay on shutter. I hit it on shutter, the shutter's highlighted, stay there until I turn it off. Personal preference. Up here is a mode button, so that this way you can go between playback and recording. Up here behind this door, your various audio settings, I'll get to those later. Audio adjustments on these two little knobs here. On top, you've got a zoom, fast, medium, and slow, and a record button that you can lock out from being accidentally bumped. There's a cold shoe and a 1/4-20 thread back here so that you could hang something else off it or hang a big monitor up here. Inside the door, you've got a button for your menu and then a joystick to work your way through the menu, and then cancel, get yourself out of that. Right here is where your two slots are. Your media, two SD card slots. Now, in the review unit that JVC provided to me for this article, they included a U3, a class 3 card, which basically means minimum speed of 30 megabytes a second. I have other cards that are U1, and when I've tested them, they've tested at 40 megabytes a second. I've never had a problem recording them in my GH4, which does up to 80 or 200 megabits a second in HD, and they haven't had any problem recording in this camera as well. So U3 may not be required, but if you want to be on the safe side, get a U3 card, which has a 30 megabyte per second minimum on the record speed. Over here, you've got your slot select, so you can like put things on different, you know, oh, I'm going to shoot this, put it on A, I'm going to shoot this, put it on B. You can jump back and forth. In the menus, you can say whether you wanted to cascade record, fill up A, then fill up B, whether you wanted to simultaneously record on both A and B, or whether you want to record two different formats. You want to record 4K on one and HD on the second card. You can do that, or even a web proxy mode, so you can quickly FTP or email something from the built-in server that's in this camera. There is a Lolux button, which I'll never use. That's 3. Quick review, number 4, which I don't think I'll use. Zebra, 5. Zebra, very handy, and it's user assignable. I'll get into that a little bit later, but you can, in the article, but you can go anywhere from 5 all the way to 105 or 100 and over, and then you can assign both the bottom and the top. So you can like move this little window up and down. You can have a wider range. You can have it just be over 100, just be under 5. You can pick where that goes and then turn it on and off right here. So that's really handy. Change your display between different modes, and then your status button is actually kind of handy. You can cycle through what the camera's current settings are. You can just tab through the different things, and the audio screen in particular I thought was quite nice because it tells you what you've got going on up here, external mic, internal mic, the dB ratings you have it set at, whether there's a limiter on or not, wind filter. All of that is sort of laid out in a pictogram, and then you have 2 big meters. So once you get your shot, you can tap that on and then see from a distance what's going on with your audio. On the back here, you have got your viewfinder. It can come out and tilt up. It has a diopter on the bottom. I found this eyepiece, you got to go in and adjust the settings for it. It's not the best viewfinder. It's not like DSLR viewfinders these days, which are just glorious in terms of color and saturation. I also think it's one of those progressively scanning, because when I move my eye real fast, but I didn't really delve into it because I didn't use it that much. But it's got a really good eye cup that I wish my DSLR had, so that you can put your eye up to it outdoors, blazing sunlight, and see it. You don't have to worry about light coming in. It really cups your eye, so that's really nice. It's got this big lithium-ion battery on the back with a tiny little set of pins, so you don't have to worry about it shorting out in your bag. Fits in here nice and easy, and it's also, you could probably expect bigger batteries from other manufacturers if you want to run this thing for a nice long time. Below that are 2 ports, 2 covers I should say, AV, headphone out, aux, and remote. I guess length, start and stop, and your DC input. Now, if you feed this thing DC, it'll charge the battery in the camera while you're actually powering the camera from DC, which is pretty cool. Or turn it off and the little LED light will blink to let you know that you're charging. Continuing around the camera, up here, you've got a little USB port. Right now, I've got a little Wi-Fi dongle in here for streaming. You can put your 4G LTE stick in here and push directly from the camera. You've got your record, start, stop. There's no power switch here. Power is over here on top. And to be honest, the powering up takes a good 30 seconds. You turn it on and nothing happens for a good long time. You know, 10, 15 seconds, you're like, did I turn it on? I think I turned it on. It's not a really fast thing. Whereas a DSLR, I'm able to turn it on and start shooting within 5 seconds. Not with this camera. That's a good 15, 20, 25 seconds before you're really up and ready to go. Back here, I've assigned this button, user button, behind the zoom or focus controls to be my server on, server off, my Wi-Fi on and off. Up here is my magnification, so I pop this on for manual focus and I pop this off. If I have a micro four thirds lens on here, I've gone into the menu and I've set this up to be my focus forward and backward as well. So that's pretty handy. Up front, you have a USB port, an HDMI port, and then underneath of that, you have a BNC jack for your SDI out. Now, of course, this could be HD or SD. You set all that inside, you know, whether you want it to down convert or keep it straight. It's not going to output 4K over SDI, and I'm not sure if this is a HDMI 2.0 port. It might not be. So I'm thinking basically just down convert to 1080 at this point from both of these ports. You've got a little grill here opening for the fan that helps keep this cool. When I was shooting with this indoors in air conditioning, this whole sensor area became warm to the touch, quite warm. The rest of the camera's fine. This area became warm. So there's a lot going on right here. And of course, this is where the meat of this camera is. This is the Micro Four Thirds mount. Micro Four Thirds is not a very robust mount. It has a very thin flange on the lens and on the camera, so you're not going to be hanging really big lenses off of here. If you're going to be using a real cinema prime, you're going to want to set up rails to support your lens. These Roncanon lenses, these Roncanon lenses are, they've got some heft to them, but they're not terribly heavy. So you can manual focus with them, but if you want to set up rails for a follow focus and everything, you're certainly able to do that. They go on here quite well, quite easily. Turn, lock it into place. And the nice thing with these lenses is that they've got one set of readings facing this way for the operator, or if you've got a second focus puller, there's a second set of readings, both iris and focus, on this side as well. So somebody can pull focus from this side, depending upon whether you're going with a single operator or two operators. Now, that's been a quick walk around the camera itself. I want to show you a little bit more about changing lenses, changing the aspect ratios, the multiple outputs on this thing, and also in terms of streaming and other features. We'll get to that in a later video. But right now, let's go back to Panavision and take a look at some more of the features of this camera. Today, I'm here at Panavision Dallas. What better place to do some lens tests and some camera tests than a name synonymous with filmmaking? Here I have the JVC 4K camera. It has an interchangeable Micro Four Thirds mount and an APS-C sensor. Now, what that means is the sensor is larger than a Micro Four Thirds camera. It gives you shallower depth of field if you're using lenses that will cover the whole sensor, but it's a variable aspect ratio sensor, so that if you don't have access to any of these sign lenses, you could use a C-mount lens like this. You could use a DSLR lens with a Micro Four Thirds adapter. Or you could use a genuine Micro Four Thirds lens like this Panasonic 14-140 zoom lens, which we'll put on the camera now. What I'm going to show you is that this lens does not cover the full Super 35 sensor, but you can dial in your crop in the camera so that you don't have any vignetting on the sensor. Let's take a look at that. So here we see the 14-140 lens, zoom lens, set up with this test chart, which we can zoom in, we can set up our crop, and we can focus it because it is an active Micro Four Thirds mount powering the lens. So we have the optical stabilization, we have the servo focus, but the problem we have here in the corners is you can see the vignetting. And as we zoom, the vignette changes to some shading, and finally at full telephoto you're kind of at it, but there's a gray area here in the corner. As we come out, it becomes more pronounced, and then it becomes in sharp focus. What you can do with this LS300 is you go into your record setting. Right now it's set at Super 35. We can decrease the sensor area. Here it's at 86%, and it's right at the hard edge, even a little bit further in right there. Now it's all the way in. And then you can also zoom to make sure that you're getting everything out that you want to get out. So you can see my crop is now inside of the soft edges, all the way in and all the way back out. Then you can set that, and now you have the ability to use your Micro Four Thirds lens on the LS300, making a whole bevy of other active lenses usable on the LS300. Now, having an active micro four thirds mount means it powers Lumix lenses, Olympus lenses, those micro four thirds lenses that have an active mount. So it provides power both for the image stabilizer, for the focus, servo focus requires power. The zoom, however, is a manual zoom, and the amount of servo zoom micro four thirds lenses can be counted on one hand. I think there's only two at this point. So the zoom rocker on the camera doesn't seem to be of much use until you go into the menu and you see that you could actually change the zoom rocker to be your focus. So you can set the lens to be manual focus and adjust your focus with the zoom rocker, which can be very handy since that hand has to be right here all the time. And this is also where your expanded focus button is. Tap at the focus, adjust your focus, tap it back out. One of the great features about the LS300 in terms of an interchangeable lens camera that you don't find a lot in DSLRs is the ND filter built in behind the lens. So you can start with it off. We're at a T of 2 with this lens. You can dial it into 1/4, 1/16, and 1/64. So you can see that even with bright sunlight or an outdoor situation, you could keep a low aperture without having to increase the shutter or do a lot of filter work in front of the lens by adjusting your ND behind the lens built into the camera. It's just a very handy feature to have built in that is available just with a twist of a dial. Now here we are. You can pull focus on this camera, on this Ronkedon lens fairly nicely. It's got a very smooth travel, and you could see pretty easily with the monitor when focus comes in. The LCD screen does work very well, but right above the LCD screen is a focus assist, so you can see where the green comes in and the green goes away. That really helps to help you know exactly what's in focus in the shot. Now, of course, that chart, everything is in focus at the same point because we're facing it directly. If you had multiple things, you could see with the focus peaking in green which is in focus and which is not pretty easily. Another really nice feature of the fact that it's a camcorder, in addition to the XLR jacks built in, it's got the handle and the audio travels directly in, there's no external cabling necessary, is the fact that you have both the LCD screen and the viewfinder going at the same time. So you don't have to worry about switching between one or the other. You could have somebody else looking at this. You could have it facing off to the side and you can still come up and put your eye right up to the viewfinder. In addition to these two different ways of viewing it, it also has SDI and HDMI simultaneous output. So you can take a low-cost HDMI monitor, mount it to your camera, and send SDI somewhere else. So that way, you've got 4 simultaneous ways of viewing the output of what this camera is shooting. I hope this initial walkthrough of the LS300 has proven useful to you. In part 2, I'm going to cover a lot of these features more in detail. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the interchangeable lenses, even putting a big ENG lens on here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Wi-Fi, and I'm going to do several image tests in terms of how much you can pull out of the shadows on this camera, highlight recovery, if the ND filter gives you a color cast, and different features like that, as well as really getting into the variable sensor size on the LS300. So my name is Anthony Burokas with AIBA Communications. Thanks for watching.